a number of Rotarians and guests that I'm very pleased to introduce. First, we have a distinguished guest, our District Governor-elect, Giddy Javid. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to have you here, Giddy.
Thank you.
I should say Governor-elect Giddy. To give you your due respect. And
thank you.
we have our Assistant Governor, Michael Lushing. Thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here. And we have a special Rotaract with us, Carson Garrison, who is the president of the Rotaract Club of UCLA, is with us today. Carson, welcome. As I said before, it's delightful to have you. I want to welcome those who just joined us as well. Tom Stillwell, Michael Shearer, Steve Day, and Leslie. That's not your name, is it? But that's what your screen, you're on mute. I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Okay. Am I still on mute?
No, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, my daughter borrowed my computer. Now I'm Leslie.
I had a feeling that was the case. So welcome to you. So to our guest, Tom Stillwell, who is also one of our guest speakers, Dan Stillwell, Al Shapiro. I don't think I've seen Al yet. And we have several special guests, Roxanne Dennis, Benjamin Fisher, and David Stover. We're delighted that you all joined us today, and we look forward to getting to know you better. Have I left anybody out? Alyssa will be introduced shortly, so please don't think I'm ignoring you. And I'm just scanning real quick to make sure that everyone has been introduced. Okay, so moving right along, we have a couple of announcements. The next district breakfast and the final district breakfast for this year is led by the youth in our district. And it will feature Lucy Meyer, who is a Special Olympics gold medalist. And I understand she's a real dynamo. So this sounds like an event very worth catching, and you don't have to go anywhere. And then, of course, we have our district conference coming up, Bet Exit. And just be aware that the early bird rate, which is $50, ends at the end of day tomorrow. And as of May 1st, the ticket price will be $75. So if you haven't already registered, I encourage you to do so. I'm getting the impression that a lot of people are registering. I went on a couple of times, 2 or 3 times before I was actually able to get into the registration page. It said the server was too busy. So I think that's a great sign. And I hope to see you there. Now, Diane, who isn't here yet, is serving as our scribe for this meeting. So we'll be sure to get her the recording. And Diane has once again offered to do double duty, as she often does.
Right, it's better on this.
And now I would like to bring on the district's new Global Grant Scholarship Chair to introduce Alyssa. Chris?
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, President Nancy. We have some good news, some great news here at Westwood Village Rotary Club. We are going to be sponsoring a Global Scholar for the 2021-22 academic year. And I have the pleasure of introducing her to you today. As most or all of you know, I have been the chair of our scholarship committee for the Westwood Club for several years, and recently became the chair of the district scholarship committee. And through the district, we are very fortunate to have gotten a candidate that Westwood Village can sponsor, and we're delighted to sponsor. And I want to introduce her to you today. She's joined us for the meeting today. Her name is Alyssa Sharp. Alyssa is going to give a brief introduction about herself, tell us a little bit about what she plans on doing and where she's going for her scholarship. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the podium over to Alyssa.
Hi everyone. I'm Alyssa. It's nice to meet you virtually. So thank you, Chris and Nancy, and thank you, the whole Westwood Village Club, for supporting my application. I'm really excited. It's a really big opportunity for me. So I thought I'd just share a little bit about myself. I went to USC and I studied economics and international relations with a concentration in international development. And then after USC, I was fortunate enough to get accepted to the Wells Fargo Financial Analyst Program. So I worked as a financial analyst for a few years. And I love finance, but I also was sort of missing the impact of development. And so I'm going back to school. I'm going to be going to study development studies at a master's at the London School of Economics, starting in the fall. And I'm sorry. And yeah, thank you so much for supporting my studies. While I'm there, I'm really excited to learn more, get a little bit more of a focus on development. But also I'm going to be working with Rotary on a community service project. So as I said, my background is in finance. So I'm looking to get into more development finance and impact finance. I'm going to be working with Rotary on financial literacy training. So I'm hoping to help develop workshops for marginalized communities, to help talking about credit management and other aspects of financial literacy. Yeah, and during my time at LSE, I'm going to have a focus on development finance through my studies. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks again for supporting my application.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. Does anybody have any quick questions for Alyssa while we have everybody here?
Where did she go to high school?
I actually went to high school in England. I grew up in England. So I went to Impington. It's a small it's outside of Cambridge. It's a small village outside of Cambridge. Yeah.
I wanted to tell everybody that Alyssa is really hasn't told all of her qualifications and her academic background. She graduated summa cum laude from USC in economics. So she is a very impressive young woman.
I have a question. These workshops, are they going to be designed so people can help manage their money and make smart financial decisions? And is that kind of what the general theme of the workshop would be?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to, I guess, build on the work of organizations that are already there and help support them. I found organizations such as debt counseling for people who are struggling with debt management. And I thought it would be good to do a little bit more on the preventative side. So talking about how to manage credit cards, how to assess different mortgages, and essentially structure your own personal finances and debt. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking to do.
Okay,
That's
thank
very
you.
well work. Good for you. Wonderful. Thank you, Alyssa. We certainly wish you well, and it's lovely that you're able to join us.
Thank you.
Diane Good is now with us. So Diane, if you are still prepared to share the thought for the day, we can do that right now. You're on mute, Diane. Sorry.
Diane isn't here. She muted.
Diane, you're mute.
I know. I couldn't get out of it. Sorry. It's one of those mornings. Okay.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here. my thought for the day is that every day is a good day. There's always something to learn, to care about, and to celebrate. You should always be around people that make you want to be a better person, who make you feel good, make you laugh, and remind you what is important in life.
That's so fitting, especially in the endless pandemic era that we're living through. So amen, hear, hear. And now I am going to bring on Tom Barron,
Well,
who will take things from here.
I understand Al Scates, based upon the gallery view, is not here yet.
I'm
Tom, is
here.
that correct?
No, he's
My
there.
name's Leslie.
Oh, Leslie, there he is. Leslie, I thought your wife's name was Sue.
My wife is Sue. My daughter's recovering from a hip operation, so we have her downstairs. Use my computer, and now it says my name's Leslie. So
Okay. Oh, we're all set then. We're all set.
I'll get the Geek Squad over here and fix it eventually.
Okay. Today, it's really my pleasure to introduce one of the greatest coaches in the history of collegiate sports, Al Scates. Al has an unmatched legacy of success, longevity, and influence in collegiate men's volleyball. Scates coached at UCLA to 19 NCAA titles, capturing nearly half of the volleyball championships awarded since 1970. Is the only coach to guide his team to 3 successive titles 3 times, including 4 straight from 1981 to 1984. He was named Coach of the Year 6 times from 84 to 2006. During his coaching tenure of 50 years, over 6 decades, the longest serving Division I volleyball coach in the US, he coached 54 different first-team NCAA and 44 US VBA All-Americans, 27 Olympians, and 7 different Players of the Year. He is one of only 2 volleyball coaches to have won 1,000 matches. Al's teams have steamrolled through 3 undefeated seasons. No other program can claim even 1 such season. Scates' 21 national championships, 9 NCAA and 2 US VBA, give him more titles than any other coach at UCLA, more titles than any other coach at any other university in any sport in history. And his book, Winning Volleyball, is the textbook for volleyball coaches everywhere. When Al Scates agreed to speak to our Rotary Club, I knew his list of accomplishments would not be recited in any speech he would give. So I decided to change the format somewhat, and I called upon a former player, Tom Stillwell, who I know has the ultimate respect for Coach Scates, to do an interview of Al. Tom himself was a middle blocker for UCLA in the championship years of 95 through 98. He was a 3-time All-Conference and 2-time All-American volleyball player, and 3rd highest block leader and 2nd highest block in the average in the UCLA history. Tom, you know Coach Scates well, so why don't you ask some questions that give us an insight into the illustrious coach and his career. Tom, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm honored and so excited anytime I have the opportunity to talk to Al and nevertheless interview him. He is he's a legend in all ways, and any one of his former players would jump at the opportunity to do this because he is the ultimate players coach. Someone, 23 years after I have now been playing for him, we still connect on a regular basis, as well as all his players do. He's the ultimate teacher, the ultimate speaker, and as you'll see, one of the best storytellers you'll ever come across. Al is changed my life for the better, as well as everyone who has ever played for him. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know him, and I will walk us through some questions here for the next 30 minutes or so, and then I believe there'll be about a 10-minute Q&A after that. So Al, let's get you started here. Where did you first begin your coaching career?
Well, I was at Santa Monica College, and the previous summer I worked full-time for Douglas Aircraft driving a tractor, and I decided ought to be something better, so I applied for a coaching job in Culver City. So they gave me this little park, Balboa Park, and I coached 4 teams in each sport: 10-year-olds, 12 and under, 14 under, 16 and under. We played flag football, we played hardball, we played track and field, we played basketball. So my first star was this guy named Eddie Machado. He's right there in the middle. 9 years old, this kid is so good. We go to Vets Park, the big park, and we beat him in the Pee Wee division. And so we started beating them a lot. They moved me to Vets Park and moved the other guy somewhere else. And we started winning county championships. And I said, I love this coaching. I was going to be an engineer like my other Uncle Joe. And I said, I'm going to be a coach. This is so much fun. And funny story, 10 years later, I'm at Beverly Hills High School, where I'm teaching in the district. And I see Eddie Machado. I go down to the floor. He's a point guard. I says, Eddie, where are you going to school? And he says, SC. I bring him to UCLA, switch him, teach him how to play volleyball. He plays on my first NCAA championship team and is the captain of my second NCAA championship team. That's how I got my start coaching in the parks.
And so in 1959, you transferred to UCLA to play volleyball and earned your degree in 1961. But then you became a player coach in 1962. Tell us about how that came about.
Well, I coached the previous fall, I coached football at St. John Vianney at 3rd and La Brea, became Daniel Murphy later. I took all the play cards from Red Saunders and ran a single wing. He was a national championship coach at UCLA in '53. And I brought all those old play cards. Nobody'd seen the single wing for a few years. We did quite well. And so I was looking for another coaching job. I'd been, I was number 3 in the test for LA City. So I was going to go to a high school and coach there. But meanwhile, I needed a summer job because I was getting my master's degree. So my volleyball coach says, I'm taking a sabbatical in Japan. You should apply for the job. So I thought about it. And I went in and I met Wilbur Johns, the athletic director. He didn't ask me to sit down. I'm standing in front of him and I'm giving my spiel to get the job. And I said, and I can't take any money because I want to be an amateur. I want to play in the Olympics in '64. He jumped up and said, congratulations, son, you're hired. And that's how I got hired. And again, my budget was $100, and which covered some of the entry fees. So I'm a struggling student, and I'm paying for stuff so that we can have a volleyball team at UCLA. The athletic department recognized us as a varsity sport, but our budget was $100, and we only had one night to practice, Wednesday nights. So it was kind of crazy at the beginning.
So jumping forward a little bit to 1965, you were a member of the USA volleyball team and a young coach at this point, the UCLA team. There's a great story about how you convinced J.D. Morgan to let your team play in Pauley Pavilion, which was brand new. Will you talk to us about it?
Well, this was interesting. I was the captain of the USA men's volleyball team that year. And we were going down to Mexico City to play in their new stadium. They built a stadium for the '68 Olympics. And so my wife, Sue, and I, we were married in '61 between semesters, my senior year, drove down to the Tijuana airport to catch a Mexicana airline to Mexico City. USA Volleyball was broke. They were always broke. Their income consisted of selling rule books. So the cheapest flight was in Tijuana. So that's where we drove, parked my car there. And we get on this airplane, and I'm noticing the plane isn't going straight. And the chickens in the cages on the inside were getting a little excited. And I looked out the window, and there was the runway. And the pilot was trying to avoid these ruts. And this this runway must have been on some kind of mountain, because when we took off, we went down, and then we took off straight up into the sky and made it alive to Mexico. We get off the plane, we rush to the stadium because we're playing, of course. USA Volleyball doesn't want to spend an extra day to get acclimated to 10,000 feet. So I'm a middle blocker like Tom. I have to go out there and play in a match and get acclimated on the floor and learn how to breathe when there's a severe lack of oxygen in the atmosphere. So what happened next was the referee, instead of favoring the home team, actually made a call in our favor. Well, what happened is the Mexicans came out of the stands, lifted up the referee stand, and took this guy out of the arena. And then later the stand came back, and then another referee got in it. I don't know what happened to that guy. But later that day or evening, the head of the Mexican Federation, Ruben Acosta, who became the international volleyball president, and his mistress, a lovely 19-year-old diver on the Mexican team, invited me to dinner and told me that the Japanese men and women were playing in Brazil, and in December they were going to stop in LA on their way home. And so as soon as I got back, I went to USA Volleyball and I said, I can get Pauley Pavilion, which had only been open for a couple of months, free if you guys will pay for the Japanese to stay for another night so they can play us in Pauley Pavilion. And then I said to JD Morgan, who was the athletic director, JD, I can get these people here free, Olympic gold medalist women, silver medalist men of Japan, and you keep all the gate receipts. So they both agreed. So they gave me this to advertise the event. This little thing here, and it was bigger, posters like this, and I put them on stands, not stands, I put them on telephone poles all over the South Bay, and I went in to see Bud Farella, who was running the Examiner at the time, the sports editor, and he would write whatever story I would give him in the sports page the next day. So I'd come home every day and Sue would type up a story and I'd take it in and then would see it published. I guaranteed 5,000 people with JD Morgan, and we got 5,000 people to watch that event. The biggest crowd to watch a volleyball event up to that time. I played for the USA against the French team at Carson High School. I think there were 175 people in the audience. We went from 175 to 5,000. JD Morgan came up to me after the event and said, son, I'm going to see to it that volleyball becomes an NCAA sport, because he's counting 5,000 people up there. And that's what he did. It took him till 1970, but he did it.
Great stories. In 1972, you served as chair of the NCAA Volleyball Committee. To grow the sport, what did you do to expand the sport throughout the U.S.?
Well, here's what happened. We won in 70, 71, 72. I was on the committee, and we got in 72. We weren't very good. We couldn't pass very well, but we won the championship anyway. So if we're ever going to grow the sport, the only way to do it is guarantee that a team from the East gets in and the Midwest, and just kind of grease it so they get in. So I made a rule, and the committee voted on it, that would always have an Eastern representative and a Western, Midwestern representative. So right now there's probably 100 more teams playing in the East than there is the West right now. But at the time they were pretty weak. But you know, Penn State won. Well, they beat UCLA in 90, I don't know, 95 or something. 94. So yeah, I mean, they're strong out there. The Midwest, Ohio State's won a couple of times. So it was something I did to grow the sport, even though it might have cost us a spot or two.
All right, this is a fun one for everyone. There is something at UCLA we always practice in the men's gym, which is probably a story to tell about the men's gym, by the way. And then there's in the men's gym something called the blue curtain. That's a very famous. It's just very famous in the UCLA and the volleyball world. And so, tell us about the blue curtain. Maybe a little bit about men's gym, and then did you ever put star players on the other side of the blue curtain? That answers yes.
Well, when I started on Wednesday nights, we had volleyball practice from 7 to 9. There was only one gym on campus. And what happened is varsity basketball went from 3 to 5, had the whole thing. And then freshman basketball went from 5 to 7. Then volleyball, women's gymnastics, and wrestling shared the 3 spots, each in a third of the gym. And we had blue curtains separating the sports. Well, a lot of volleyballs, I noticed as a player, went into the women's gymnastics area. You didn't want to hit one in the men's wrestling. They were very upset if you did that. But these curtains were always there. So when I started coaching, when Pauley Pavilion became available and we got the whole men's gym, I kept the curtains. And what happened is eventually we'd get up to 30 players. I'd recruit a lot of players. They wanted to wear that UCLA shirt. As long as they worked hard, they could stay there. I only coached the players on the first court. Assistants coached the other players. So one day, St. John Smith, who became the captain of my undefeated 79 team and is known as King of the Beach, and my golfing buddy on Mondays and Fridays, by the way, he didn't dive for a ball that I thought he should have dove for. So I sent him behind the blue curtain. He was only a freshman at the time. I didn't bring him back for 2 weeks. For the next 4 years, St. John Smith was the best defensive player on the court until Coach Kurai showed up in 79. Then it was a tie. And that's how we did it. When I sent somebody down, the coach who was in charge of that court would send somebody up who really deserved it and been working hard. But people never knew when that was going to happen, because I didn't know when it was going to happen either. And so everybody worked hard all the time. That's pretty much the story.
Every player who's played for Al, regardless of your superstar level or not, has a blue curtain story, just so everyone knows. Al sent us all to the blue curtain once or twice. And it hurts, but you work your butt off to get yourself back on the first court. Of your 19 national championships, which is just amazing, I was lucky enough to be a part of 3 of them. Which one had the best team? Not necessarily the best individual player, but which team?
Okay. I got so many gold medalists on this 82 team. I have to refer to my notes. Okay, starting setter, Coach Kurai won 3 gold medals in the Olympics. 84, 88, and 92. Ricky Ludes was the other setter. We ran a 2-setter offense. He won in 88, a gold medal. Doug Partee was in 3 Olympics. He won a gold medal in 88. Dave Saunders won 2 gold medals, an outside hitter. And we just got him into the Hall of Fame finally a couple of years ago, or last year, I guess it was. And no, you're going to get him in, Tom.
I'm trying.
That's right. I was thinking about getting him in. Okay, so you've got all these gold medalists, plus a guy named Reed Tsunohara, they called the Flying Hawaiian, who was all state in Hawaii in basketball, baseball, and volleyball, who would have been better than all of them if he didn't break his leg in 16 places in a motorcycle accident. But anyway, I think that edges out the team, the 84 team, which went 38-0. This 82 team went 29-0. Now, we got a kid I recruited off videotape named Asbjorn Volstad from Norway, who came in and started on that team. And he wouldn't come to school unless I got him into engineering. They only took 32 engineering students. It was a straight A average in Norway. You go an extra year, you go 13 years of high school, and he was brilliant. So Hans Wagner, the dean of engineering, had no foreign students. And he was obviously a foreigner if you talk to him. So I talked to Wagner a lot and finally got Ozzy in. And that's why that team was so good. One of those two, 82 or 84. 95 was real good too. That was a good team. That team went 31-0, but they lost a game. So I don't know. 82 or 84, I'd say.
Right. 31-1. That's what we went in 95.
Yeah.
It was a great team. In addition to coaching 54 first team NCAA players, All-Americans, 26 US VBA All-Americans, 44 US national team members, 27 Olympians, 7 players of the year. Which one do you consider the best?
I'll have to go with the International Volleyball Federation selection. They voted Karch Karai the best player of the last 100 years. And I would say, with the exception of his freshman year when he couldn't hit very well, he did everything extraordinarily well by the time he was a sophomore. I never saw him play. I was working full-time as a teacher for 35 years, so I could afford to be the UCLA volleyball coach until I became full-time much later, like in 78. But even then, I couldn't afford to give up teaching because volleyball just didn't pay that much until later. So what happened is I just had to keep working as a teacher. And so, but anyway, I'm going with Karch Karai. I didn't have time to go watch him in Santa Barbara. I was just too busy. So I met him at Denny's restaurant in Calabasas and bought him a hamburger, which was probably illegal. And he agreed to come to UCLA. Dr. Karch Karai Laszlo Karai, his dad, was a player for the Hungarian national team. And we played against each other in Detroit, and he wanted his son to come to UCLA. So it was pretty easy.
I've heard Al be asked that question many times, just so everyone knows, and he usually won't answer it directly. So I'm impressed. You guys should feel honored. You are one of the 2 coaches to have won over 1,000 matches. It's a little trivia here. Who was the other, and whom did he coach?
Well, his name was Andy Banikowski, and he was the first one to get over 1,000 in the women's side, and he coached UCLA. He was a diver from San Jose, or swimmer, and he went to the same frat house as some of my players. They brought him to practice, and we taught him how to play volleyball. And I remember the girls' club team was playing in the dance gym. It used to be the women's gym, and some girls came over, and I think they sent the two best-looking girls over to ask if one of our players would coach them, because they didn't have a coach. It was a club volleyball team. And Andy stepped forward and became the women's volleyball coach. Then when he graduated in 68, by the way, he made a first team All-American in 68. He got that good that fast. He ran the Sunset Canyon Rec Center and coached the women's volleyball team full-time as a rec center employee. And finally, he became the volleyball coach. Won some NCAA championships, I think 3 at least. By the way, all the coaches at UCLA are ex-men's volleyball players. Stein Metzger coaches women's beach volleyball. John Spirac coaches the men's team and the USA Olympic team. And Mike Seeley coaches the women's team.
And Karch is the head coach of the women's USA team.
Yeah, women's Olympic team.
Right.
And we've got coaches all over the country, of course.
Right. You
Jeff Nygaard's the coach of the men at SC.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. So everyone loves a Coach John Wooden story, and we know that you coached during the Wooden years, and you guys were good friends. Tell us a story or two about you and Coach Wooden.
Well, he lives in the neighborhood. We're in Encino here, I'd see Coach in Ralph's Market on Ventura Boulevard when he was still driving his Mercedes. He had a Mercedes they gave him as a parting gift. He was a terrible driver. I don't know how he made it there, but he couldn't find stuff. I'd help him shop whenever I'd see him. He lived by himself just off of White Oak here. And Sue would see him at the post office here in Encino. No, Tarzana, you'd go to that one. One time he was taking stuff from his car to the post office. She helped him. Anytime somebody sent Coach Wooden anything to autograph, he would send it back. He would package it up, send it back. In fact, when he was at UCLA, he had the next office to mine. Well, first of all, he kept his big office, but he so intimidated the other coach that followed him, he felt he should take a smaller office. So he came over to my side, right on Bruin Walk. And he loved to chat about baseball. I'd come in, if I didn't have a practice, we'd talk about baseball and stuff. He gave me this little card here. It has all the pyramid on it, and making the best of oneself, the 7-point creed. He says, to Coach Scates, #1 in his sport and my friend. And he used to come to our banquets. He'd insist on paying to come to the banquet. At first, I'd send the checks back, then he'd send it back to me. So finally, I just took the checks. He would bring Tony Spino, his longtime trainer. By then, he'd given up driving, thank God. And Tony would drive him there. And he never wanted to talk. He'd be in a coat and tie, and he'd sit there. And one time, everybody comes out. We only had maybe, if we won a championship, we might get 200 people at the banquet. So we had a championship, and about 100 people walked out because him and I were talking. Nobody wanted to disturb him. Then one guy came up to get his autograph. I don't know how, but the 100 people that left came back in, and about 200 people got his autograph that night. But here's what I remember. This is a Keith Erickson story. Keith has to do with Coach, of course. Keith played on his first championship team, 1964. So you had Walt Hazard, Gail Goodrich, Keith Erickson, Fred Slaughter, and Hirsch. Okay, so what happens is Keith plays volleyball for me. And he's great, awesome. He's a great baseball player, volleyball player, basketball player. He went to the Olympics in volleyball in '64. So he was, and I played paddleball with him down at the beach club. Amazing. But anyway, this guy could do it all. So John decides, since Keith's grades weren't very good this year, that it must be the volleyball influence. He doesn't want him hanging around these beach volleyball guys. So he told Keith that he's going to be captain next year. He wants him to study, doesn't want him to play volleyball. So the best volleyball team at the time that Keith was playing was Santa Monica College. They practiced 5 days a week. I was still practicing one day because Pauley Pavilion wasn't ready. Wednesdays from 5 to 7. They were better than us. But we were better if Keith played. So Keith comes up into the gym Saturday when we're going to play him for the championship. This is just a league championship. I started a league in '64. Before that, you went to a local Y and played all day. If you're double elimination till like 1 a.m. or something. So we had a league. And so Keith comes up with his uniform, says, Coach, can I play? So I said, just a minute. I go to the Daily Bruin guy. I say, kid, I'm going to play Keith. Do not write a word of this. You got it? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And they cooperated with you in those days. Now they don't do that. So I played Keith. And so Monday, I'm teaching in Beverly Hills. I'm teaching on Rexford and Sunset, at a little school there, Hawthorne School. I drive to UCLA to get a Bruin. You couldn't go online and read it. There was no online. So I get the Bruin, nothing in there about Keith Erickson. Big story on us winning. So I said, I've got to tell Coach. He's going to find out. So they had a little trailer on Westwood Boulevard. And I go in, his door's closed, but I knock. He's probably down. He used to go down in the village and get lunch at this place. So I said, oh, God, he's out to lunch. J.D. Morgan sees me. What are you doing here, Al? His excuse for not paying me full time was I was working full time in Beverly Hills. So he knew I was supposed to be in Beverly Hills. So he says, I've got to talk to Coach. Why? I played Keith. Oh, no. He drags me into his office and he says, he's going to kick Keith off the team. And I said, okay, why don't I resign? Because what was he paying me there? I think I was paying $600. Yeah, I was getting $600. When I coached football, I was still at UCLA. I made $1,000. It wasn't a lucrative job. So I said, okay, fine. I'll write a letter of resignation. So I wrote it out. And like the next day, he calls me and he says, well, I've thought about it. And I want you back at $1,000. And so, okay, now Coach Wooden comes in. We're on the Valvoline Sports Committee to promote athletics. And they made 10,000 videotapes they sent to high school of volleyball. I got a bunch of guys together, Karch Karai and Tochi Toyota, and a bunch of guys and great women's players, and made this videotape. So John was doing the same thing for basketball. So Sue and I are John are sitting at the Irvine Marriott. And I said, by the way, do you know I played Keith Erickson when you told him not to play volleyball? He says, sure. I looked at your letter of recommendation. I tore it up. And I said, oh my God, I always thought J.D. Morgan did that. Gave me another lease on life. No, it was Coach. Okay.
Those are some great stories. Tom, Barron, I don't know if we maybe want to open it up for some Q&A now from the people.
Oh, I think so. But let me ask Coach one thing. He was his first love was coaching. But what did you teach when you were coaching? What courses?
Well, that's an interesting story because I was going to be a high school coach, but that summer, remember, I was already married and I didn't have a job for the summer. So John Carter, the personnel director at Santa Monica Unified School District, came up and recruited me to teach elementary PE in Santa Monica. And I said, I don't know anything about that. I want to be a high school coach. And he says, do you have a summer job? And I said, no. He says, okay, you're running the Santa Monica gym and you can coach 3 basketball games a night in the basketball league, and the rec department will pay you extra for that. And you can run volleyball tournaments. You can even play in them. And I says, okay, I'll be an elementary PE teacher. And I had to work the playground in the afternoon. So I took it. And then I found out Beverly Hills was paying more than any place in the country. So after 3 years, I went to Beverly Hills and did the same thing over there. I taught 1st through 8th grade. It was great. I mean, I really enjoyed it. And then I was flying back from coaching in Sicily in '97. And I had to start the next Monday teaching. And I'd been working with the World University game. Tom was on that team. And I decided to retire. On the way home, I was talking to Gary Cunningham, the old UCLA basketball coach. He was the chef de mission over there in Sicily. And we decided I should retire. So I did.
Coach, I had one other question. It seemed that John Wooden, after his early successes, had the pickings, whoever he wanted to play on the team, kind of recruiting wise, had the best players. After your early success of championships, did you have that same, I don't know, eventual thing where you didn't have too much recruiting the top players?
Well, here's the deal. The last person I personally saw play volleyball in high school was Tom Stillwell. That's the last person I saw play before we signed him. I recruited a coach to be the recruiting coordinator, to go and look. I was tired of staying into gyms watching club volleyball all day Saturday and Sunday. It was just, I couldn't do it anymore. So I had Brian Rofer do it for the last 25 years or so. And I would just go in and close the deal if necessary. If he could close the deal, I'd let him do it. So Tom was the last player I actually saw play before he came to UCLA. And the only reason I did that is because Brian was looking at some kids in Orange County and he wasn't sure about Tom. So I said, okay, I'll go. It's not far away. And I saw him play and I couldn't leave. He didn't know how to play. He was a basketball player. He was a great basketball player. I heard all about his basketball play. And then I saw him jump. My God, he got off the floor so fast. And I said, wow, we're going to put him behind the blue curtain for a year. And he'll really be good. And that's exactly what happened.
Oh.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Let me tell you a perspective from a player's point of view, Tom, on that. So when every school recruits you in volleyball, if you are one of the top high school players, they will promise you starting position and they'll give you the world. Al will walk in regardless of how good you are, and he'll say, yeah, you're really good, but you still have to earn your place on the team. And so while UCLA could always have its pickings for the best players, there were some of the best players who didn't like the thought of having to still compete for a position and have to play for it. They wanted to be given the position no matter how they were playing. And so that, while Al got most of the best players, there's some players who skirted away from UCLA because of that challenge. And I think UCLA was better for it.
Oh yeah. I've never told anybody they were going to start. Yeah. I mean, most of you guys didn't ask, but some of the guys we lost to other schools, you could tell they'd been told they were going to be the man right away.
That's just it. Nancy, why don't we open this up to other members of the club that ask questions?
I have a question. I have to remember that blue curtain, because when I used to play basketball on weekends, they had on one side of the curtain, they had the really good ball players, and the other side was kind of like the scrubs who just want to play. So that blue curtain brings back a lot of memories.
It's still there, but it retracts up into the ceiling quite easily now.
Oh.
It's very lightweight, and it has mesh at the top. So when I was there in the 60s, if the ball would hit the blue curtain, all the chalk dust from the gymnasts would come down, get all over the floor, and people would be slipping around. It was crazy. Oh, that's another thing, Tom. I never told you had to mop the floor when you were a freshman either.
Coach Scates, you have a former student here.
From where?
Michael Lushing from Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I've got a lot of them. I taught grades 1 through 8 there. Hi,
Hey,
Michael. How you
Coach.
doing? You look different.
It tends to happen 51 years later, but I have a lot of gratitude, and looking back, I'm really, really fortunate because you were my driver's training teacher.
Oh my God.
I'm just so glad that I didn't get in a wreck, because imagine how that could have changed history. So
I never had a wreck.
Yeah.
All those other guys, instructors in the slings and stuff, their cars were all beat up. That was down payments for the house that Sue wanted. Every Jewish holiday, every Saturday, every Sunday, every Christian holiday, I was out there with driver training.
No, it was a blast, and I want to thank you. And I brought my son to a game when you were coaching, and he was so inspired by your team and your coaching that he wanted to be a volleyball player, and he played just down the street for you at Crespi, played high school ball there.
Great. Yeah.
And really proud of him. So
That's nice.
It was really great. So thank you.
Did I have you drive through Topanga Canyon?
No, I don't think you trusted me to go that far. I think we just went about a couple blocks and we turned around, and I think you said, that's enough. So
You know what? I used to take the Beverly Hills kids downtown, the Main Street, because they never saw that part of the area. And they're, wow, look at this, you know. I used to enjoy stuff like that. It was
great
fun.
memories.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks.
great story. John, you had your hand up.
Yes, Al, can you give a couple of qualities that you think great coaches have that seemingly a lot of others don't have? People like John Wooden and Glenn Bassett and Al Scates. I went to Loyola Chicago, and we had a great volleyball program there. We won 2 straight NCAA volleyball championships, which is highly unusual. I think we must have had a really great coach, and he left, and now
Yeah.
we haven't won it anymore. And
That's what's happening.
our basketball coach left, Porter Moser. We've been in the tournament the last 2 years, and we're probably going to go down. What are the qualities that?
Well, let me make a comment. I was there once for one of those championships at Loyola, and you're right, he's a great coach, but the way Title IX goes now, all the great men's coaches are leaving the men's program and going into women's programs because they're paying them a lot more money to coach on the women's side right now. I've got one of the guys that Tom played with, Eric Sullivan. Eric is coaching as an assistant at the University of Texas women and probably making more than any men's coach right now. Because anyway, but it's so much more difficult, I think, to coach on the women's side. But okay, you want to know what makes a good coach? First of all, I think you have to be very positive with your players, and the players read you. So if you act worried, they're worried. If you, I remember hearing the opposing coach one time in a championship match tell his players, if we lose this set, we're going to lose the match. I mean, you can't have any negative thoughts that your players can perceive.
Yeah.
You know, even when you don't know what the hell's going on, you have to look like you do. And just walk out there and be positive. You can tell your players almost anything, and if they believe it, it works.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would tell the players, okay, if they get a good, say they're scoring on us, and if they call a timeout, I say, okay, if they get a good pass, they're going to set their left side hitter. His favorite shot is a cross court shot. Tom, you're going to drop your hands and stuff him. And then, you know, that's what you do. You tell them stuff like that. And just Coach Wooden, you know, he never called the timeout. He let the other team call the timeout because he thought his players were in better shape. And our players were in better shape too, because we used to do circle drills for 45 minutes where we do 300 sit-ups, 300 push-ups. Part of it was because I didn't get to school until I didn't get finished teaching PE until 3, and we started practicing at 3. So we'd have them exercise for 45 minutes. And when I walked in, we'd get the balls out. But we were in better shape than anybody, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's just being positive and being honest. If you tell 12 different players are going to start on a basketball team, somebody's going to be a little upset, you know, when you're recruiting them. So I just never told anybody they were going to start. If they earned it, they got it. That's it. And I was never buddies with anybody on the team until after they graduated.
Yeah.
And now I play golf on Tuesdays with my guy, Larry Wendell, graduated in 67. He was our 68 Olympic captain when we beat the Russians for the first time. You know, and I play with St. John on Mondays and Fridays. And Tom, I love to talk to him. You know, I have a Zoom call today with my players from 2005 to 2009 at 5.
Great.
So we stay in touch.
That's great. Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
Any other questions from members?
Or guests?
Or guests, yeah. Turn it back to you, Nancy.
Well, I want to say that we're speechless by your accomplishments coach. I've never met anybody quite like you, and it's really an honor. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Okay.
It was really an honor to have you join us today. And you're such a great storyteller besides. You have a lot that's so interesting to share, and you share it very well. So thank you for joining us. And as a token of our appreciation, we will be making a donation in your name to the Westwood branch of the Los Angeles Public Library.
Oh, great. My mother was a library assistant.
Oh, really? Perfect. Perfect.
Nancy, if I could, I'd like to thank Tom for really getting Al Scates and thank them both. What a great program this was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Al, hey Al,
Yeah.
just say hi to Sue for me, will you?
Oh, sure. I'll be happy to do that.
Yes, and I'll just add to that, Tom, you're a very good interviewer. So you two are a great tag team.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're former roommates.
Yeah, it's easy with Al. Got a
I'm
lot of ball up there.
right there too.
Yeah, I got an interesting one, but we don't have time.
Well, I bet we would certainly enjoy hearing from you again in the future. More stories to share. Thank you again for being with us. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our guests, our district governor-elect, our assistant governor, our special guests, our UCLA Rotaract president, and our members, and Alyssa. Good luck to you. We're happy for you. And we will meet again this time next week, same time, same place so far. And in the meantime, have a great, healthy, and safe week, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Al.
All right.